Bloody hell, guys. One of those evenings where I lie down for like just 10 minutes with my son at like 7 p.m. I'm like, I'm just going to help him get to sleep. I'm going to do a video shortly. So I lie down, close my eyes, and then open them, and it's freaking 11:49. I got a video to do, guys. I got a video to do. 2 parcels arrived today, and I have to open these up and pot these bad boys up. So let's get into it. Look, mate, I know it's late, but are you going to give me a hand? Yeah? Are you going to give me a hand with it all? You come and say hello to the people? Or are you going to be like, mate, I'm trying to sleep. Pete, I'm trying to sleep on Noah's Paw Patrol couch. I'm getting to it, mate. Just let me go to the loo. Oh, man. Every step you take, every move you make. There's a really good version of that song from, I think, the TV show Stalker, where they took all of these kind of songs about romantic relationships, but they put them in like minor keys and made them really kind of creepy and spooky. But that one is done in a minor key, and it's really, really good. I'll link it. Cheers. I'm looking at my keys. Time for a midnight beer. Cheers, Beach. No? Oh, you're in the mood, aren't you? Jesus. All right, frisky. Okay, so today's going to be a bit of a prickly affair, guys. A bit of a prickly affair. If you have come for your fix of aeroids, you are going to be sadly disappointed. It is a cactus heavy video. I think the first one that's going to be on the channel, unboxing cacti, and probably showing you any of my cacti really. But it's how it rolls, baby. Gotta follow the passion where it goes. So I thought I would share this unboxing with you guys. Just jump the gun. Missed some tape at the back here. But one of the things that always blows my mind, I've gotten a few cacti now in the mail, is how light cacti are once they're taken out of their pots. You always think they're going to be heavy as, right? You think, oh, it's just mostly water. But yeah, they, for whatever reason, they tend to be pretty light. Anyway, there's going to be quite a few by the looks of it. And the best part about getting into cacti is that I now have a use for all of these opaque pots. So pots that have that aren't transparent, I can actually use again. So go figure. Should probably grab a few of these out, as we're going to have to go through this sort of shotgun approach, I think. So this box comes from, who did I grab this one from? This one is from Spine City on eBay. So I may have splurged a bit and lashed out on quite a few of his plants, which he had all on auction. And the other good thing about getting into cacti, guys, if any of you guys are into sort of your, rarer, more interesting cacti, is that they're so much cheaper than aeroids. What's up with that too? They grow so slowly. There are some cacti that I have seen online and they'll be like 40 years old and they'll be a few $100. And you're just like, if that was an aeroid that had grown for that long, it would be tens of thousands of dollars. Anyway, that is Spine City. Free shout out to Corey. Your plants are beautiful. I'm glad to have them in my collection. At least I'm hoping, knock on wood. We're about to find out. And it looks like there are more here than I actually got, so I guess we'll see how we go. And I can't see any labels, so I'm hoping that there are some on the inside, because I'm still very much learning. Anyway, I might push these forward and I'll give myself a tray. I've lost my potting mat. I cleaned it the other day and I've put it somewhere, or it's been moved around and I don't know where it is. So Susan, forgive me, it'll appear. All right, and I've got my soil mix here. I probably need to make this, it's not too bad. I'll give you guys a look. This is my cactus soil mix. So it's obviously, you know, organic soil with a lot of pumice and perlite, sand and other things in there, vermiculite too, to just make it well draining and gritty, which is what you want. You don't want a necessarily a very organic heavy soil with cacti. They tend to not like that if it's a little too rich. Anyway, I'll stop blabbering, although it tends to be what you guys are here for, and I'll start getting into the cacti. So I'm wondering, is a knife better or scissors? I guess maybe just fingers. Maybe just fingers. But it's so yeah, it's so good when you find, you know, another part of the hobby that you get into. Like, I had never really been a big cactus person. I'd always kind of appreciated them, especially from a biological point of view. When I was at university studying biology, I was always like, man, cacti are freaking weird. But I never kind of got the bug of like getting them and having them in my house. And yeah, it's now I'm just totally sucked in. Okay, so he has put the labels in here, which is amazing. Just little little pieces of paper. So this is Copiapoa hypogaea. I'm not 100% sure on the pronunciation there, but Copiapoas, I believe a lot of these guys are from Chile. And they are cacti that are heavily sought after because they have these beautiful dark black spines and this kind of like knobbly, I don't know, what would you say? I'm still learning how to sort of describe these guys, but they have this beautiful geometry and these knobs that kind of appear, and you can see there's a whole bunch of pups and offsets on this plant that are coming off the base. So I had to grab this one. This was an absolute stunner, and Copiapoa kind of sucked me in from the beginning. And you'll see today I actually got a really rare species. It's hard to get your hands on, but it's probably my favorite just because of the coolness, the way that it looks and everything like that. And I managed to snag one, so I was pretty pumped about that. Anyway, let's unwrap this guy. Wow, what a good root system. Now, the interesting thing with cacti that I've been learning, when you get these guys in the mail and you pot them up, typically, because of the damage that happens to the roots, what happens when you pot them up like so, almost looks like a mushroom, doesn't it? You don't want to water it immediately. So what people will actually do, unlike aeroids, is you will pot it up, say, in your nice little sandy, gritty, chunky cactus mix. I was about to say aeroid mix, and you'll leave it for a week and you don't water it because it's a cactus, right? But you also want to make sure that the roots have time to heal and callus over so that when you do water it, no root rot sort of takes place at all. So it's an interesting thing to think about with aeroids. You're kind of like, is a lot of the root rot issues that we run into quite frequently, is that a result of potting up and then watering straight away? Because that's how I've been taught to deal with plants, right? You pot them up and then you give them a water because the soil typically is pretty dry. But with cacti, it doesn't really matter too much if the soil's dry. What matters is whether or not the plant is kind of turgid. So if you give it a bit of a squeeze and there's no give, it's really turgid, you know that the plant's good and it's got enough water and it doesn't need to be watered and it can sit in really dry soil. So I'm using this little barbecue skewer here to just make sure that the soil is kind of compacted a little bit down around the sides and is supporting the cactus. And I think we're going to go one by one and give these a label. Another thing that I discovered whilst getting into cacti, and it's so cool because communities seem to have this different kind of information, little tidbits, knowledge that you can take and sort of use and share and everything like that from one to the other. When you're labeling these plants, the best thing to use for the labels is pencil, because apparently when it gets wet and everything, it doesn't wash off anywhere near as easily as even permanent marker. So how cool is that? So Copiapoa hypogaea. Beautiful. And the last thing, I'm going to need a paintbrush so that I can clean the sand and rocks and other bits and pieces off the plant after I have potted it up and made a bit of a mess. So there you go. It'll be really interesting to see what you guys reckon, because yeah, I think most of my followers are probably not deep into cacti, and I mean, I wasn't even really deep into it only a few weeks ago, but started getting heavily into these different YouTube channels, and you know, you go from one rabbit hole to the next, and the passion evolves. All right, next one up. Now, some of these are on graft, which is another aspect of the cactus sort of realm that I find really fascinating, because this is something I don't think I've seen in the aeroid community world, growing, you know, aeroids. I haven't seen anyone graft one aeroid onto another. I assume you can, right? You could probably take it, say the root stock, if you chop the top of a plant off, and you could probably graft it back together, right? Where you just seal it up, and as long as it stays hydrated, it heals up and allows the movement of nutrients and water and everything like that. But in cacti, it's done quite frequently across different species, and the reason that you would do this, quite often, people think, oh, why would you do that? You know, it looks like shit. The reason you do it is with slow-growing cacti usually. This is an Astrophytum. And when you put it on another plant that has an established root system, so you've effectively chopped the top of the plant off, you expose the meristem, right? So the growing, what would you say, the xylem and phloem that are in the plant, you expose that to the top. You chop the bottom of the, it's called a scion, the top part that you're going to put on it, and you just rest it on top of the other one. They fuse together, and nutrients and water can travel between the two once they sort of connect. And because the one at the bottom, the rootstock, has a much, much better root system established already, especially if it's a large plant in comparison to the one that's on the top, the one on the top can grow, you know, 10 times faster than it otherwise would. So that typically is why people will put these guys onto rootstock. They'll graft it. It's to speed up the growth, usually so that it then flowers and seeds much, much quicker than if you were just, say, you know, growing it on its own roots. It might take years and years and years, where if you do it this way, it may take, you know, a year, 2 years, whatever it ends up being. So yeah, as you can see, the root system here is enormous in comparison to the size of the cactus at the top, the scion, and how big it would actually, the root system of this guy would have been, you know, much smaller. So yeah, I just find this really fascinating, and I don't know to what extent you can just graft different cacti. Like, can you just take loads and loads and loads of cacti, no matter what the genus, what the group, and just fuse them together like this, grafting, and just create, you know, insane zombie, what am I thinking? Not zombies. Frankenstein's monster kind of grafted cacti? Or is it limited to cacti that are closely related? And so Astrophytums are probably my favorite genus, right? Astrophytum meaning star leaf, and they have these beautiful kind of star patterns, and they can get all sorts of these trichomes, these white sort of growth patterns. Some of them are inermis, which is a word that means that they don't have spines on them. So this one is inermis. They're often called nudum, very nudum. And so you can touch them, there's no spines, and they're beautiful, and they get huge, and they just look otherworldly. I think that's another aspect to cacti and succulents. The thing that draws me in isn't necessarily the kind of like objective beauty, although I think they are beautiful. It's the fact that they just look so out of this world. They look like they're alien, like living rocks sometimes. They're just freaky, weird plants that are just really fascinating to look at and learn about. I don't know. Anyway, kind of pricked myself, so I think I might grab my gloves out. What are you doing, Peaches? Hop out the way for a sec, mate. Oh, okay, and so that one was Astrophytum asterius, and it was a hybrid. So that is another sort of part of this story that got me sort of interested in cacti. Once they flower, you can hybridize them pretty easily with other cacti. It's kind of like it is what you can do with things like your anthuriums and your monstera and your philodendrons, although I guess to those it's sort of a lesser extent. And then you can grow them from seed, and it's just a really cool, interesting
part of biology that you kind of get to have in and around your house if you're a plant person. I would love to grow these guys out from seed like our Anthuriums, but it requires a completely different level of patience because the growth rate is so much slower than with aeroids. Oh my God. Wow. Okay, so I think, yeah, this is a beautiful one. I was about to say this is Copiapoa, but this is Eriosyce. I think I'm saying that right, Eriosyce. It's a hybrid done by Spine City. So I guess that's SCG. I'm thinking SG1, right? Like Stargate 1. But check out this plant. Like it has this kind of maroon, purple and turquoise on the top here and these dark, dark black spines. Like when you start really getting into cacti and seeing the different colors, the different forms, that knobbliness as well, like dear God, it is just freaking epic. And I think this is another one that is on, actually it may not be on a rootstock. I think it's just got a nice big tuber below it. This is how you typically can tell that they have been grown from seed and not put on a rootstock graft, because they have, some of these species will have these large tubers that form below the plant off which the roots come. And apparently if you actually chop the top of the plant off as a scion and chuck it onto a graft, they will never actually grow a tuber like that. Even if you degraft them, take them off a graft, and then, you know, pop them up and have them grow, they'll grow roots, but it won't ever look like what a seed-grown plant looks like. So again, just another fascinating part of the biology. There you go. Eriosyce hybrid. What a stunner. And yeah, I'm sorry if you guys are just not into it and you're kind of watching this just being like, what? These all look the same, everything like that. I was the same, but I got bitten by the cactus bug, guys, so you're going to have to come along for the ride. And it is one of these funny things. I've noticed that in the aeroid community, online influencers, people that I watch, there are people who do like cacti, and they'll have a few, especially the trailing cacti, you know, things like the monkey tail cactus, the rat tail cactus, and your ripsalis and other jungle cacti that you can get. But I haven't really noticed many of them, if any of them, really kind of go deep into it as much as they do with aeroids, you know. So it is really funny when you see that there are these two aspects to a sort of single hobby, or two areas that kind of don't have a lot of overlap but share so much in common, if you will. So I wonder why that is. You guys will have to let me know what it is about cacti that maybe haven't sucked you in, or perhaps if you, Peaches playing with the kids' toys. If you have been sucked into cacti, you'll have to tell me, you know, what it was that did it, because I guess it is a sort of completely different area. It would be like, say, being into muscle cars and then suddenly getting into, I don't know, Formula One. I guess they are sort of similar. What maybe being into muscle cars and then getting really, really into Vespers. You know, they're kind of like vehicles, but don't tend to have a lot of overlap in that sense. Oh my God, here's another one. All right, I'm gonna need gloves. This one's a bit of a prickly unit, funnily enough. Ooh, okay, this one is, and I think a lot of you guys are going to be like, I swear to God, these all look the same. This is a different genus and species, Gymnocalycium spegazenii. So again, has this beautiful sun-stressed kind of dark purple top to it. It's green at the bottom there, you can see, and I'm talking about the scion, the plant at the top here. And then the spines have these dark black tips, but like white, yellowy bases to them. And it just has this cool knobbly geometry to the top of it. A lot of these look amazing when you look down on the plant and you actually see the geometry. It's another thing that it's just gives you that warm feeling. It's kind of like when you see a new leaf emerge on an aeroid plant and it comes out and hardens off and you're just like, damn, nice. I'm getting that same kind of vibe from looking at these plants when you see really nice geometry on them. It's just kind of like, oh, nice, you know, nice. Just tell me if you guys get it. Almost forgotten about my beer, guys. All right, where are my little labels? Gymnocalycium is another one of these genera that I find really, really just beautiful. If you guys want some genera that I'm into, Astrophytum, Ariocarpus, which are weird looking, kind of like starfish looking, really slow growing cacti. They are cool. Gymnocalyciums. There's quite a few of them, but those three in particular, I think they really get me. You'll find them and just be like, God damn. Man, we are going to be here for a while. He even has locality data on these plants. That's another thing that's really interesting. At least that's what I think it is. The number and letters up the top here. I think a lot of these plants will have been collected as plants or seed, originally back in the day, hopefully, out of the wild, effectively poached, right? But you can look these numbers up and often see the exact location that these things come from, which you don't really have the privilege of doing with aeroids. You don't have that same kind of information usually. You could probably find it if you really, really dug, and bless me. And the plant in question, something like the Monstera obliqua, there's apparently only 2 different clones that have ever been collected from the wild of Monstera obliqua Peru. Jesus Christ, maybe I'm allergic to cacti. And so, obviously, when you work that out, you can look up where those were originally collected and go check them out. It's probably in Peru, I'm not sure. You guys have to let me know what you reckon, but I don't know with other plants anything like, Monstera deliciosa. Would you have any idea where, say, the large form or the small form was collected? Okay, now we're getting into the rare stuff, which is really cool. So this is Copiapoa cinerea. And it is one of the most sought after cacti as far as I'm sort of aware. And you can see why when you look up these plants. Large forms, they're slow growing, they look absolutely stunning, really dark spines on the top of them. This is a particularly green specimen, but you'll see ones that are like these light blue, almost like a whitey kind of blue, grayish blue color, and they grow really slowly, and you'll find them, I think, again in the deserts of Chile. There was a story a while back that I was learning about where poachers had taken these guys out of the field and sent hundreds of them over to Italy, of all places. And there must be a big market in Italy for cacti. And it was a sizable portion of the native population from a certain area, which was sort of really sad. And the people over there didn't really know what to do with the plants. And so it turned out that it was like an organization or a person donated like $1,000. That's all they needed, $1,000. And they repatriated all of these cinerea cacti plants back to Chile for them to take back into the wild and plant. It was a really beautiful story. But it was also this story that was kind of like if someone hadn't donated the $1,000, they would have just put the plants in storage or given them to a botanical garden and they would have never been repatriated, which would have been really sad. So again, because Copiapoa cinerea is a really slow-growing cactus, it's been chucked on a graft here. Something else worth mentioning that I found really, really cool. I was looking into how these plants get poached and how to tell the difference between a poached plant and a non-poached plant. And it's not really a problem here in Australia because typically you're not going to have imported the cactus live, right? Usually, and this is a cool aspect to cacti and the cactus kind of community, is that it's grown from seed quite often, especially in somewhere like Australia, where you can't just really import large specimens. Like people grow them from seed. All of these would have been grown from seed, or you can get like offshoots or pups off other plants, obviously, and plant those up. You can also chop the plants in half, say like with the rootstock that I showed you here. They would have taken the top of these plants off and you can just let them callus over, chuck them in the soil and they'll produce roots. But a lot of it is done via seed growth. And I've forgotten where that story was going. There was something interesting that I was going to tell you. Having a brain fart. I guess we'll come back to it. Sorry about that, guys. Oh man, here we go. So this is the first Ariocarpus that I own. And these guys are really, really, really slow growing. I think apparently they push out these tubercles, I believe. These little like leaves, I guess you would call them. They push out only a few of those a year. And so they grow very slowly, again, why you would graft it. And so this one is Ariocarpus cochobianus. Cochobianus. I don't know if you can read that or not. All right, gloves on, Pete. You're gonna stab yourself. I remember what I wanted to tell you. So in the US and in South America and everything where these guys are native, poaching is a huge problem, right? Because you can just go into the wild and you can find them just on the side of the road. You can find them in the bush there or in the forest. Well, wouldn't be a forest, but you know what I mean. I guess it'd be like a desert where cacti are mostly found. And when you pull these guys out of the ground, usually the ground is so rocky with large rocks and plants and other root systems and everything that the taproot won't go directly down. It'll be twisted, it'll have, chunky bits missing out of it, or like indentations and everything where it's grown around something, and the plant's going to be beat up like hell. It's going to look a lot worse than, say, a specimen that's been grown indoors since it was in, a seed. And so a lot of the time, that's how you actually tell whether it's been poached or not. Does the plant look like it's been beat up a heap? Does it look like it's got a lot of corking, the kind of discoloration that you would see around the base of the plant? Does it look weathered? And does the root system look like it's grown around a bunch of rocks and other plants and other, root systems and stuff? But yeah, it's an aspect of the hobby over there, at least in the US, where they have to worry about this sort of stuff, because you can go to nurseries and people have plants and they may have been poached without those people even knowing about it. And a lot of people don't want to obviously support poaching of specimens out of the wild. Man, we're going to be here for quite some time, so I hope you guys don't mind a long episode. I'm sort of enjoying this, so I hope you guys are sort of, I don't know, getting the cactus bug a little bit. You'll have to let me know. Would you buy a cactus? What kind of cactus do it for you? And it is one of these things that is really interesting, that I've spoken to quite a few aeroid people. People who own nurseries or people who have huge collections, whatever it is. People who are into aeroids. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And I show them photos of cacti that I really like, and they'll be like, these things are fucking ugly. Why are you into this? And so it is really interesting that you'll have a sort of standard set of characteristics that you find appealing, say, in aeroids, right? So you'll look at foliage and you're like, fuck, foliage, dark foliage, veination, silvery blue foliage really does it for me, or variegated plants. Fuck, the variegated plants are just top of the world. But you don't get the same kind of, what would you say, the same kicks, the same triggers, the same cues from plants that are cacti, because you can get variegated ones, but you're not going to, I don't think you can really be a foliage kind of guy, right? Because the spines are the modified leaves on cactus, as far as I know. And so you can't, you can be into spines. I guess you could be you can be a foliage person in cacti if you're into the spines. I can understand that, but it's kind of a completely different set of characteristics. It's like a really sharp, thin, black spine is my jam, and that's also why I really like dark anthurium. It's kind of like those things don't really mesh together and overlap too well. So we've got another Astrophytum here, and this is a cultivar called Hanazono Gold. And it's really interesting with the Astrophytums, at least. A lot of them have, the cultivars have Japanese names, and no surprise, it's because the Japanese, apparently with these cacti, love hybridizing them and cultivating them, and have done so for decades and decades. And so there are some phenomenal, strange looking cacti. In fact, I've got one up here, I'll show you quickly. So this is a cultivar called Fukuryu. I think it's someone's surname, obviously, but it's another Astrophytum, and you can just see how knobbly it is. And the trichomes, the white dots all over it. Again, it's a nervous, there's no spines, but it's just a weird looking cactus. But it's, being cultivated, and it is originally Myriostigma is the species name, but it doesn't really look much like the original pure species. Now, okay, I should mention the reason that I'm getting a bunch of these Astrophytum and the Ariocarpus is because I kind of want to get into the hybridizing and cultivating side of things too, and it's going to take a long time, right? That's another reason that I've sort of lashed out on a bunch of these plants, small ones because they're affordable. Some of these are, $10 or $20, $30. I can't remember the most expensive one here, but it would have been well and truly under $100. And so it's really different from aeroids, but you need to get in soon, and then it takes years sometimes for these plants to get to the size that they can produce flowers, maybe 5 years to then produce flowers, which are really beautiful, by the way. But only then can you start hybridizing them. And the hybridizing side of things, that's what's really getting me interested in anthuriums and cacti in particular. The idea of being able to pollinate things, get seeds growing, germinate the seeds, grow out a whole bunch of the seeds, right? So if you get say across, these two different Astrophytum here, completely morphologically different, but probably compatible in terms of cross-pollinating them. You grow out 100 seed, and because you have two different looking parents, recombination of the DNA, right? Man, I'm gonna have to take an antihistamine. I'm sneezing like crazy. I have to edit all this out. Man, I don't know why I'm sneezing so much. So yeah, recombination occurs, right? This is where you get, say, your two different sets of chromosome from one parent, and the two different sets of chromosomes all mix up, happens with the other parent too, and then these combine together and you end up with an individual, the offspring, that has a completely different set of pairs of these genes, right? So you won't necessarily have the same two that your dad has. You'll have one from him, one from your mum, and they're kind of randomly assorted throughout your genome. And that's why you end up looking different from your parents, right? You're not going to be an exact clone of one of your parents, usually. Usually. I've probably just made a very, very, very huge oversimplification of what recombination is, but that is how it sort of works from memory. Okay, beautiful. So there we go. This is Astrophytum asterius again, same species as this guy, but a different cultivar. So this is Hanazono Gold. But yeah, so you take your 100 seeds that you get from crossing two different plants, you grow these out, and the cool thing is, so these are F1 progeny, right? The first generation of progeny from the cross, the F1, and they're all going to be really diverse. Usually, if the parents were, say, two different species, what you'll see in the F1 is often not what you saw in either of the original species, or it can be a combination of the two species such that it appears unique in the F1 generation. And so that's what really kind of wets my whistle and makes me interested in crossing things, because you then grow out these, say, 100 seed, and you can look at all these individuals and see all these different characteristics, traits, and the way that things look. And then you can select from them which characteristics you wanted. Say you want something that's blue and long and thin, right? So you pull out all the blue ones and all the long and thin ones, or hopefully the combination of the two. You can breed those together. You can, pollinate across those guys when they all flower in 5 years, and then create your F2, the next generation, which will hopefully have kind of a more, what would you say, concentrated down set of the genes that you're selecting for throughout all of the individuals there. And you just keep repeating that process until it's kind of stable, and all of the individuals will then have the characteristics that you've been selecting for more and more as you go through the generations, the F3, 4, 5, etc. It becomes purer and purer. All right, so this one is Thelocephala esmeraldana. Esmeraldana, mate. Thelocephala esmeraldana. I think a lot of you guys are going to be like, looks like the bloody same thing as all these other ones. But this again is just a beautiful purple looking cactus. I'll have to look into a little bit about why they come out with this beautiful purple pigmentation, and if it's permanent or if it's a sun stress kind of thing, because I think in a lot of the cacti, and interestingly I found out, cacti usually don't actually take a lot of direct sunlight. They're kind of like aeroids, where they want indirect brightness, especially in the harshest parts of the day. Otherwise they end up burning. But I think they also sun stress, which is why a lot of these guys can end up turning these darker colors. And yeah, so with buying cacti for me, I literally just watch lots of YouTube videos, and then, oh, this pot's cracked. Hopefully it's all right. Just noticed that. And then I might put some tape over that, to be honest. And then just look for cacti that seem appealing, the characteristics that I like, the ones that just sing out to me and say, hey mate, I'm really good looking. And then I go down the rabbit hole of looking into the different species in that genus, and have a long list now of plants that I find really attractive, really sexy, and I would love in my collection. And that's how I end up finding, a whole bunch of these. And that's probably, you can probably see a sort of recurring pattern of these dark colored, knobbly plants. For one reason or another, they're the ones that kind of really appeal to me. Okay, so Peaches has apparently decided she's not making an appearance today. She's probably off sleeping. Yeah, she is. She's sleeping on Noah's little Paw Patrol couch. Sorry, Peaches. Hope I'm not keeping you up, mate. just going to put tape over this crack, mostly to just prevent soil from kind of going everywhere. Hopefully that does the job. Just some electric tape here. We're slowly getting through it, guys. Hopefully you like the long form stuff. I'll just keep chatting about different things that come to mind as we go through. Oh, got to write down the tag here. Thelocephala. So Kefla will be something to do with head. I think that's Greek for head, isn't it? Esmeraldana. It's really funny seeing some of the same genus names, or not genus names, species names for cacti. I think there's one that's called Gigas. So I'm always thinking, Gigas, what has this got to do with Philodendron gigas? But it has the same species name for one reason or another. I don't know what gigas means in Latin or Greek. And you get to your 30s and this is how you get your kicks. Cheeky beer at midnight, opening up little parcels with cacti grafts on the inside so that you can hopefully grow them out and start creating your own cactus hybrids. If I could only see myself now when I was a high school kid, like, what did you grow up to get into, Dad? Or Dad. What did I grow up to get into as an adult? I always wondered that. I'm like, I wondered during high school, I'm like, if you could just show every single kid at high school what they would be like in 20 years, would any child be like, yes, nailed it? Or would all of us just be like, ah, shit, I've got no hair and I'm, a little overweight and now I'm, teaching English online and getting into cacti? They'd be like, didn't see that coming. Didn't see that coming at all. All right, we'll try this one without gloves. We'll just get risky. So this one, another different genus, although it looks so similar to the others. This one is Chileorubutia esmeraldana. So there you go, same species name, Esmeraldana. I wonder if it's related to a person or not, but looks very similar. And again, it's just that dark knobbliness, short dark spines, and the purple on this one is stunning. The light won't do it justice, but let me just tell you that it is a knockout. I hate when you get the plant kind of like off center, but I kind of don't want to disrupt them any more than I need to with putting the soil in. But there you go, wow. It's like dark browns and purples there on this one. And again, just that geometry, stunning. Okay, label it up. Chileorubutia. FR518. So there you go. Gorgeous. They're like weird looking mushrooms when they're on graft, and it's going to be really interesting. I'll have to learn what to do when I decide to take these guys off graft. You can just leave them on here apparently, and sometimes they'll shoot off all these offsets, like the first one that we were potting up. See how there are all those little pups at the base, and when those grow, they can obviously cover up the graft stock, the root stock at the bottom there, and you can just leave it and it, just looks really nice. But then other times you can just slice it, let it callus over, chuck it on some soil, and eventually it'll grow its own root stock and you just, off to the races. But although it'll probably be the inverse of that, right? It'll probably be slower than it would be on root stock. It is really funny though, because some plants, the ones that you speed up that are real slow growers, these Astrophytums, these Ariocarpus, they will never look anything like the ones that are grown, hard grown they call it. This is where you grow it slowly and don't over fertilize it, don't over water it, and it grows like it would in nature, hard. So it takes a very long time to size up, and it often looks very, very different morphologically than when you put it on a rootstock where it's just getting loads of nutrients, loads of hydration all the time. They end up kind of like really fat, like these obese cacti that you can just see them and you're like, yeah, that wasn't grown naturally, or it wasn't grown hard. All right, yet another genus, but again, this beautiful dark turquoise color with these stunning black spines. The black spines are what kill me. And you can actually cross a lot of these different genera, apparently, but this one is Neochilenia, I don't know where the emphasis is. Neochilenia dehertiana. Don't know. Butchering these. I always feel like I'm putting on such an Aussie accent when they end in like an A. Esmeraldana. Dehertiana. Again, look at that. That big, big fat taproot. This one was definitely not poached. hopefully. Looks like the taproot goes straight down. Another cool aspect to the cacti hobby. People stage their plants. And there's a really interesting crossover between people who are into cacti and people who make pottery. Because quite often they make these really interesting clay pots that they fire and put through a kiln, and then they use to stage the plant. So the objective is to make it look like it's in nature, but inside, say, a large pot. So they'll put rocks on there. I've seen people put rubbish on there. They'll put like old bottle caps, and a rusty can to make it look like it's, in some sort of polluted area where it's, the modern world has impacted this pristine habitat. But that aspect is really cool too, because you just don't have that in the aeroid community where you would get a plant and try and stage it like it was in a jungle. You can't really do it the same way. But with cacti, you can get these really cool pots quite often and then use different soil types, and they'll cover the soil once they put that in there with different rocks to sort of make it look all, really nice, cover up the soil, and then they stage it with, larger rocks and everything on top. God, I'm gonna have to go blow my nose. Oh, shit. Can you hear that? My daughter's just woken up. Oh, we might have to have a pause, guys. Be back. Okay, I think she's down. She just woke up and wanted me to fall asleep with her. So, yes. All right. Next one. To talk a little quietly. Her room is kind of like just round the corner here with the door shut, but I think she often wakes up and then hears my voice and is like, ooh, what's going on? Ooh, okay, this is an interesting one. You'll love this. So this is one that's been grafted on. It's another cacti, but they're really, really thin cacti stalks. So you end up having this thing that looks like a lollipop. Forbidden lollipop. And this is a Turbinicarpus alonsoy variant Nicolay. So again, really cool. The things at the top are flowers, and it looks like some of them have actually been pollinated. You can see at the base of these flowers, those red kind of jelly bean looking things at the base. And that is usually a sign that they are seed pods and they have been pollinated successfully. So that's really cool. Hopefully we get some seed from these guys. But again, just really knobbly, really cool. Big fan of these Turbinicarpus. All right, I'm going to try and hold this gently. Gently. Yeah, I'll have to look up the species name of this base stock here. So I think I know what it is. But apparently these are really, really good rootstock that help grow the plant that's fused on top. And you can see how well they have grafted together and how the top scion has actually started sort of enveloping the rootstock at the bottom there, sort of coming down. But yeah, apparently these are really, really good rootstock. So I guess I'll have to chuck that in. It looks really funny though. So there's that one. And that's another really cool aspect to cacti, right? When you go hunting for them, there are different things to look for if you want plants that you can propagate out. So there's obviously ones like this that have potentially seed pods on the top. You can also find ones that are flowering, and sometimes I've bought two plants that are both flowering at the same time because I take them home and then I then try and pollinate them with one another. You can also find them that have pups coming off the bottom here. Like I could twist these off and turn them into new plants as well, and they often have like rootstocks growing down into the base or into the pot. And then also sometimes you'll find that ones that have had seed pods like this, they kind of explode and the seeds can just come out of the pods, or the pods will fall off and the seeds will eventually make their way out into the soil. And so sometimes in the soil you'll see little cacti seedlings making their way up as well. So it is interesting compared to aeroids, where you often look for whether or not they've been multiple planted, or whether or not you have a plant that you could propagate, that you could chop up and turn into many plants. There are different things to look for in cacti to try and find ones that you can turn into many plants later. Okay, so this I believe is the very last one, and this is another Gymnocalycium spegazzanii, or spegazzani. Spegazzini. So a slightly different morphology for this one. Let's see if I can find the other one. Where did the other one go? Is this the other one? Is this the other spegazzini? Yeah. So you'll see the spines are different on this one from the one over here. So it's going to be interesting to grow these out and see what they look like compared to one another. All right, this one's a bit of a, he's going to need gloves. He's a prickly critter. Oof, look at that rootstock. Great. Man, running out of pots. Gymnocalycium spigazzini. All right, so I guess that's all of these ones. I'm gonna have to get rid of all of this paper in the recycling. And we still have another box, guys. We still have another box. All right. So this one comes from Succerland. I see what you did there. Succulent land, Succerland. And it is another story of, there are some really good websites online that sell succulents, but it is another story of some of them will be so overpriced and then other ones will be really underpriced comparatively. So there's one, I was looking at one recently where, what was I trying to get? I was trying to get a different Astrophytum and I found it on one site for $7. And on another site it was $60 and they were both the same size and looked like the same plant. So it's kind of another aspect to the hobby that's really fun, for me at least. It's kind of like trying to find the highest quality specimen for the least amount of money online. All right. Oh, I think I got like a little freebie in here. Oh, look at that. Love when they send these. Freebie, and it says, I'm not sure if you guys can see, but it's a little pin that says Plant Daddy. I wonder if they look at your name and they have to try and work out if you're a male or a female. Like, do they send Plant Mummy to the ladies? What happens if you've got a name like Ashley or something where you could be either? All right, so we've got 2, 4, 6, 8 other cacti to get through. This is going to be fun as well. And they've put the names on the outside here on tags, pre-made tags, which is great. And they've packaged really well with these little peanuts. So it's kind of like a little lucky dip, except I get to do it repeatedly and I know what's in here. I just haven't opened them up yet. Hopefully they all made it okay. Now I don't think any of these are grafted from memory. So they should all be just seed grown cacti. That's everything. It's really funny when I get these now, I'm always like, oh, I have to hold on to them and use them when I'm sending plants. Because at the moment I'm selling a whole bunch of El Choco Reds and I have to send them off, I guess it'll be next Monday. So I need to be able to package them well. All right, so this one is Gymnocalycium horstii, small. And these ones have the prices on them. So this was $12. Yeah, here we go. So now you get to sort of see some more sort of typical Gymnocalyciums. Look at that. It's like a fat green jelly bean with spines on it. So cool. So cool. So I'm going to look at that rootstock and I'm going to try and work out, really fit. I think he should fit in there pretty well. Yeah, that's probably perfect. Okay, there we are. So I'm going to put my finger sort of on the top and tamp everything down. He's kind of sitting there okay. A little bit more soil just to really give him some support. And then, yeah, what's cool is that I have the price and the name on the tag and the website. Very clever. So, Gymnocalycium horstii. Cute ones. These ones I really like. And it's sort of hard to see, but they have this kind of like velvety iridescence about them when they hit the right light. I'm not sure if you can really see, but they're not really shiny. They're kind of velvety. Really, really pretty. All right, next one here. This is another Gymnocalycium. Ooh, you guys are going to probably recognize this one. This is a very, 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 very common species. You'll see these on... These are the ones that you'll know from seeing them on rootstock in places like, you know, your big box stores and places like Bunnings, and they'll be like fluorescent red, yellow, sometimes like dark purple. and they're on rootstock for a different reason. These ones are on rootstock because they can't survive. They don't have chlorophyll. They're like, it'd be like finding an Albo monstera that is just white. And if you graft that plant onto, say, a green rootstock of an Albo, of just a standard Monstera deliciosa, that's what they're doing in those big box stores. So this is Gymnocalycium Mahanovichii. So look at that, beautiful little flower coming up. Look at the chevrons on the side of it. So those kind of like triangular lines, those lighter coloured lines down the sides, and you'll see it's sort of shaped like an Astrophytum. It has this star shape to it. Very cool one, and it is this sort of maroon, dark maroon colour. So really, really cool little plant. But yeah, these are the ones that you'll often see grafted on top of, I think they're usually grafted on top of like dragon fruit plants. I think that's what it is that they get grafted onto. To correct me if I'm wrong, guys. So I think this guy will fit in here. Cool. Beautiful. Right, paintbrush to get some of these bits out of the top. Maybe the skewer is going to work better to get the vermiculite and bits of wood out. All right. So that one was snug as a bug in a rug, guys. Fit in there really nicely. Oh, I'm going to get some more soil underneath it, just to make it even more snug. There you go, Gymnocalycium horstii. Ooh, okay. Mammillaria or Mammillaria. These are often the ones that you see at stores that are really hairy. That's that genus, Mammillaria. But not all of them are. So we'll open this up. Okay, this is an interesting looking one. And it looks like a bit of a crispy critter. Yeah, this one I think I got because it had this like spaghetti-like spines. I was kind of really interested to see what had happened when this one grew out. You can see that there are some offsets on the bottom here growing out too. Really nice rootstock. Seems to be growing well. Have I got a smaller pot that I can chuck this guy in? Let's see. I think I'm going to have to do this one into one of these cups, guys, unfortunately. Everything else I have is kind of either too big or too small. But hopefully it does okay, even if this is clear, because we'll see how it goes. Always a learning process anyway. Whoop. All right, so there we go. That one is Mammillaria Mania Lapostole. It's interesting when they have like hyphenated species names like that. All right, we're getting through it, guys. We're getting through it. Ooh, another Astrophytum. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. This one feels like it's going to be tiny. Oh, wow. Cute. Look at the tiddler. I'm definitely glad that I kept this smaller one. Although, it may actually be too shallow. I need something a bit deeper. All right, so Astrophytum astarius, another one of these. And it is interesting, you can see when I pulled this guy out, the rootstock was kind of going to the side. So that tells me that it was probably a pup that was sticking out of the bottom of a larger plant and the roots were going like this, sort of turning the corner and then going straight down. So when you take the pup off and you put the pup upright, the roots look like they do that, like a little banana. So I think the majority here, guys, based on the labels, were $12 each. So again, very affordable. It's another really cool part about the cacti hobby, is that to get your foot in the door compared to a lot of the nicer aeroids, it's quite affordable. Although I guess, you know, it is to some degree as well with aeroids. Just depends on, I guess I forget how expensive my taste has kind of gotten in the aeroid world. Oh wow, okay. So this is a Gymnocalycium Jusensianum or Jusensianum, but I think it's got a J at the start, so it might be Jusensianum. But look at the reds and the greens on that, and it's got a beautiful green flower coming up. And again, just that sort of star shape and the nice geometry. You can see what I'm into, guys. You can tell pretty easily, I think. All right, I might put you... I realise why I'm sneezing now. It's because when I lean over the soil bucket that I have here, there's a lot of sand in it, and the dust comes up and I sniff it. That's what's getting me to sneeze. Go figure. All right, so I'm just sort of pushing these rocks up underneath the plant to give it a bit of support. And we will chuck in the Gymnocalycium eusensianum label here. It'll be really interesting if I do an update of all these plants in like, I don't know, a few months to see how much they've grown or if any of them have survived. Fingers crossed. I'm still sort of finding my feet with cacti. I haven't killed anything yet, but I have a feeling that cacti, like aeroids, are the kind of thing that you kill slowly. They're not the kind of thing that you sort of like under or over water and then tomorrow you come out and it's dead. Whereas that's happened with plenty of alocasia and other plants that I've got where you'll be like, I swear it was fine yesterday, and then you come out and you're like, oh no, she's a goner. Medium size. Okay, so this is a Copiapoa maritima or maritima. So again, oof, I can feel that sand up my nose. Am I going to sneeze? Oh my God, look at the rootstock on this puppy. This is gorgeous. Look at that. I'm just trying to work out how to get a good purchase on this without busting my fingers up. Look at that. It's almost like that thing from that, what is it like? Oh, the movie with the Martians, you know, the day Mars attacked, where they're like coming across the landscape and they have these little legs that are kind of like dragging along the ground. I have to look up I can't remember the title of that film, but yeah, it has those vibes to it. It's interesting. I wonder if they store a lot of water in those sort of like large tubers below the plant. But yeah, again, Copiapoa, look at those knobs. There's sort of geometric forms on them, sharp edges. Oh man, so good. So good. All right, I think you can go in something a little larger, something like this. The other cool thing about cacti, and I probably said the other cool thing about cacti about 10 times in this video, is that I could potentially be handing down these plants to my grandchildren. I mean, you could be doing that with your aeroids if you manage to be able to keep taking propagations from it. But this cactus is probably only going to get, you know, to maybe this size in my lifetime. And if I can keep it alive that long, it's a pretty cool thought to be thinking I could be handing it down to my kids or to my grandchildren who hopefully don't kill it, you know, but there are plenty of stories on different YouTube channels of that happening where someone's got a really big specimen and they're like, that thing is 50 years old. And it was given to me by a guy who was born in the 1930s, you know, and grew it from a seed. And you're just like, these stories are really cool parts of the this area, I guess, this you know, plant niche. Man, this thing is freaking gnarly. This one is gonna blow your mind, guys. If you haven't had your mind blown yet, this thing is about to blow your skirt off. All right, are you ready? Put your seatbelt on, buckle in, because you are about to get blown away. Man, whew. How epic is that thing? It's like a brain with a mohawk. Imagine sitting on that or stepping on that in the desert. Jesus Christ. Beautiful root system. Look at that. But those spines, that was a big reason I bought this one. Those huge spines at the top. Wow. So this is Stenocactus lancifer. And Stenocactus, that's another one of the genera that I really liked because of these wavy lines down the side of the cacti. And I think a big reason that cacti will have these weird shapes, these knobbly kind of shapes, is so that they can expand and contract easily and hold on to their rigidity. So that, say, if you are a column or a sort of tall plant, you know, relatively speaking, if you run out of loads of water, you don't want your form to kind of just collapse because it gets, you know, flaccid, effectively, running out, or dehydrated, running out of water. Instead, as it contracts, if it keeps this kind of interesting geometry where it has these creases and folds and everything, I think a big part of the selection pressure there is maintaining the structural integrity of the plant so that it doesn't fall over and rot, you know, or, you know, just break or whatever. And then when it does rain again, the plant is going to be able to expand quickly with all that water without just exploding. Because you can imagine if it didn't have this kind of ribbing and it was like a flat surface, if you suddenly pump loads of water in there, it's just going to go poof. And that's what these roots are like too. They're adapted to suck water up. So you put these in really well-draining mix, sort of like the aeroid mix, but less organic-y. And you want water just passing straight through effectively, because the plant has evolved to just rapidly pull water out like a sponge of the soil that it's sitting in. All right, vermiculite and perlite out of the spines here. Make it look a little more presentable. Looking good, looking good. Man, what a gorgeous, gorgeous Stenocactus. What a winner. Does look like it's got so much attitude. A bit more of this perlite out. It's going to be stuck in there forever, mate. I think we're down to the last one, guys. And this one is Thelocephala rinconensis, subspecies rinconensis. So I think when they have like a subspecies, it's obviously a population within a species that is unique. It might be geographically isolated, it might have, you know, different form, but it's still within the same species. And I think if you have subspecies and the subspecies is the same name as the species, it's the type species. It's the very first group that was ever described as that species, and it'll get precedence and get given that name, the subspecies of the actual species, if that makes sense. I don't know if it always happens like that, but that would be my guess. All right, so here's another gnarly looking one. Oof. And this one looks like a Ferrocactus. So it has these, again, just like, it's almost like mutant form. The geometry is really cool. The spines are dark and kind of vicious. And I think, yeah, it's mainly those green creases in there that have just really caught my eye. The tubercles, I think you would call them, these things coming out. They're almost like little nipples with piercings on the end. Just epic. But yeah, wow. All right, so I'll pot this one up and then I guess we'll finish up for the night and I will let you guys go so you don't have to hear me rabbit on about cactus anymore. I need a pot. Man, if ever I needed to use gloves, it was probably now, but let's just wing it. Whew. Sharp. Slightly off center, but what can you do? All right, so Thelocephala rinconensis. So yeah, I've got all these guys here, definitely filling out the cactus collection. But the cool thing is, you know, everything in front of me here was only a couple of $100, and I have dozens of plants sitting in front of me here. And yeah, I'm going to leave them in soil. They're going to sit here, and I'll probably come back in a week and then water them. I'm not going to water them straight away because that can encourage root rot and you end up with a dead cactus eventually. But thank you so much for joining me, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you next time. Tooroo.